Good Morning Gwinnett presents the Friday Morning Mingle, the show hosted by the women of the Thrive Tribe, sponsored by the Gwinnett Women's Chamber of Commerce. Check out the ladies every Friday morning at 10 a.m. as they talk about their real life as an entrepreneur. If you miss an episode, be sure to go to www.goodmorninggwinnett.com to listen to past shows. Sit back and enjoy.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Friday Morning Mingle, brought to you by Good Morning Gwinnett. So happy to be here with you this morning. Got a special guest. Happy to have him with us. So right now we're streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Amazon. Amazon, you know, we love you guys. We love all of you, but we love Amazon. Amazon stick around for the whole time. You know, everybody on Facebook is normally really busy. Amazon tends to hang around for a while. So today our special guest is Commissioner Kirkland Carden. I'm so happy to have him here. We spent some time together recently. He presented some wonderful information to some of the women of the Gwinnett Women's Chamber of Commerce. And I'm so happy that he's here this morning to share more. For those of you who didn't get a chance to be in the room with us sitting at the table, you get a chance to hear from him this morning. So welcome to the Good Morning Gwinnett Friday Morning Mingle, Commissioner.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It looks like where you are is pretty beautiful. I'm digging the background. It looks like it's really nice house. I haven't been out just yet, but it looks like it's really
outside.
nice.
Yeah, it's great.
So listen, you know, it's so funny. I'm gonna say this, and I said this to you in person. Normally, when I talk to people, they're in a campaign mode, but you have been really a breath of fresh air, honestly, because you have been so generously giving information and sharing and just bringing some light to what we do at the chamber. And I'm really grateful. I'm grateful to you and Chantel Wilson. Shantae and Chantel always mess me up, but Chantel Wilson over Economic Development, because we are a new chamber. And most of the women in that chamber are micro businesses. They're not, we don't have 50 employees, so we don't really count as small businesses. And a lot of times we get left out of the loop about what's happening, in the business world. So thank you for, just keep showing up. You said you would, and you have, and I appreciate that, because, people say they're going to show up and we never see them again until we get 9 million flyers in the mail saying vote for me. So I appreciate it. Listen, I keep it real. So just so everybody know, I keep it real. The Friday Morning Mingle is by keeping it real. But anyway, I want you to kind of share some of the things that we talk about. But first, I want you to tell people what you do as commissioner for your district in Gwinnett County.
Sure. So real quick, I said it before. My name's Kirkland Carden. I'm on year number 3 of a 4-year term. I serve on the Board of Commissioners. I represent District 1. Due to redistricting, the lines have changed in District 1. So now it's made up of the southern tip of Swanee, all of Duluth, Berkeley Lake, Norcross, Peachtree Corners, and a little slither of Lawrenceville going down Duluth Highway. So I represent roughly just under 250,000 people. It's a really big district. And I have, I think, 5 or 6 different cities in my commission district. My main responsibilities as a commissioner, number one, is we approve a budget each and every year at the top of the year. Our budget in Gwinnett County, the last one was $2.27 billion. And
billion with a B? Billion?
With a billion. B with a B. Wow. And with that budget, we're responsible for providing a lot of the services here in Gwinnett County, Georgia. So whether it's your water, your sewer, fire, EMS, permitting, zoning, even our corrections, the local prison, the sheriff's department, etc. We provide a county of 1 million people with important services that, to be candid with you, a lot of people take for granted, which is a good thing, because if things are operating, going smoothly, you really don't care to think about it. But we do have a big operation in Gwinnett County, Georgia. We have more than 5,700 plus employees, and people come there full-time, part-time, and we work day in, day out to service you, the residents of Gwinnett County, Georgia. So outside of service delivery, we are responsible for land use and zoning. So when there's a request to put a church, an apartment complex, a car wash, a new business at a location, first thing you have to do is you have to check to see if that use is permitted at that site. And if it isn't, then that person has to go through a rezoning. So one of the things we do as a commission It's very important. We have public hearings each and every month, the fourth Tuesday at 7 p.m. We start that process, and we hear from people all night requesting zoning changes or special use permits. And this is so important because it affects the physical makeup of a community, right? You know, you hear those things in the news, those stories about someone wanting to put a landfill near a church, and you're like, who would approve that? That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Well, you know, some a county commissioner or a city councilman somewhere would approve that. So it's a big responsibility. And then
Thank.
lastly, and I guess I'll add this too,
Mhm.
is we set the policy for an organization of our size. So some of the policy changes we've implemented since we've been in office would be the Crown Act, right? Protecting people from their employment based off their hairstyle, or in
Mm.
my case, lack thereof. Um, Parental leave. So when someone wants to have a new family, we actually started paying people. We said you can have 3 weeks paid parental leave. I think 4 weeks when I think about it, 3 or 4 weeks paid parental leave. So you can spend that time with your family. You know, start a new family. That's important to me. That's important to our county leadership. So whether it's policy, zoning decisions, or the budget, the board of commissioners is a really it's really responsible. The responsibilities for this job are pretty heavy. I don't take it lightly.
Thank you for clearing it up. I think a lot of times when we think about you guys, we think about stuff like can you hire people? Can you change things that you probably can't. So thank you for clearing it up because I think a lot of times, even when politics, like I don't know if I ever told you this, but I was gonna go into politics and
You
I
should.
found out I just wasn't cut out for that. So I decided to go with where I'm good at. Only because I know that I look at you guys and I know the work that you do is, hard work because when I know quite a few of you personally, and when people are kicking your backs and you still got to be champions for the people. So
Mhm.
I'm not good at that. So I knew I wasn't cut out. I know I wasn't cut out for that. No, that's not true. I am good at it because people kick my back into, but I'm still a champion for the people. Um, Talk about the because I know one of the things you were super duper excited about, and we were all laughing about it, was the transit plan. So let's dig into the transit plan because here in Gwinnett County, I think I've been following the transit plan since 2019 when the referendum first came out, and every time it came out, it got shot down. So now you guys have a plan that you feel is really good. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So, based off the last two recent transit referendums, so the one in 19, the one in 2020, we heard your comments and concerns by you, me, and the general public, the voters of Gwinnett County, Georgia. And we said, you know what? The issue is still there, right? The problems aren't getting any better. They're actually getting worse over time. We still have to address our transit or transportation needs in a county of our size. We directed staff to go and start a new plan from scratch. So the one from 19 to 20, they were built off each other. This one was brand new, said blank slate. And we gave them some directions. We said, hey, we want you to listen to the concerns that were raised in the last two elections, and we want you to keep that in mind and create a new plan. And now we're in a good spot where we can talk about it publicly, and staff has prepared that plan. And this plan is going to be different from a few different ways from the last one. First off, um, it's going to be county ran. So it won't be part of MARTA. It will
Mhm.
be an expansion of the Gwinnett County Department of Transportation. Second, there will be no heavy rail, there will be no light rail. So it'll be entirely bus intermodal transit. So by that I mean bus rapid transit, fixed bus routes, on call or paratransit bus services. And because we removed the heavy rail, it freed up more money in the budget to program additional routes. So now I can say with a straight face, this transit plan will service 100% of the regions in Gwinnett County, Georgia. It's literally transit for all. I know that sounds corny, but with a straight face, once we set up the zones that we talked about yesterday, whatever part of Gwinnett County you're in, you'll be able to request on call transit service. You'll have bus routes fixed and rapid services throughout the county to the major employment commercial hubs, not just getting you around the county, but to different parts of metro Atlanta that are the major employers. So this is a completely different plan. $17 billion. Um, so we're still working on the funding for that. But once we secure a local funding source, that will make us, what's what I'm looking for? Then we will be, then we'll have the possibilities to submit for additional federal funding through the Biden administration's infrastructure plan that they passed into law. But to get that additional $1 billion, a local government or a local entity has to secure money on their own, right? They're not just going to give you a windfall of cash if you haven't put any skin in the game. And I think that's what we're talking about internally. How do you do that? And to be very candid with you, it looks like we'll prepare another transit referendum, if that's the majority of the board, if that's our wish.
I want to bring this up because I know one of the things that people were concerned about when the referendum for 2019 and 2020 came out was the safety issue. Now, Gwinnett has grown substantially since both of those referendums came out. And so I think I saw the last I saw, we were at 1 million residents here in Gwinnett County. I was like, wow, that's a lot. So there was a issue. Well, people had some issue with safety. They felt like if we had all this transit, it was going to bring more crime into Gwinnett County. And can you speak a little bit to that and to those concerns?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll definitely say this. For people who say, transit will bring crime, I say transit brings people and opportunities. Crime is already here, to be very candid with you.
Yeah.
And I mean, we see the issues in the news, and that's without a transit line to the county. So my responsibility as a county commissioner is making sure that our police department, right, one of those 14 different departments in Gwinnett County, Georgia, have all the resources, staff, and personnel they need to do their jobs effectively, to make sure people like ourselves, people on this call, can have peace of mind and feel safe in their neighborhoods, feel safe in their communities, but also feel welcome and respected. So um, I think there's been plenty of studies out there to show that this myth between bus or rail lines and crime don't necessarily exist. Look, growing up, I took the bus to get to and from Georgia State and get to work. As recently as, before the pandemic, I would drive my car to Doraville MARTA station, take the train to get to work, where I worked for the Georgia Department of Transportation for 5 years. And in that whole time span of me using transit, never once did I see somebody get on the bus with a flat screen television and a ski mask. Never once did I see them, the things they use to break the windows, to break into cars nowadays. Never once did I see them do that.
Yeah.
But, what I did see firsthand with transit services is it provided people with opportunities, like myself, to get to school and to work. And with those opportunities, you improve your situation and you put yourself in a situation where you're not dependent on crimes to help you survive or get by. And, that's the goal with the transit plan, is to create opportunities for people that weren't available for myself, so they can have the opportunity to improve their life and their situation.
So let's talk about opportunities. So we've been joined by Miss Letitia Smith. She's another woman of the GWC. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Commissioner Kirkland Carden. I think you met him at our breakfast last month. Well, last couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I did. Good morning. Good morning to you both.
Morning. Let's talk a little bit about opportunities. And it was funny because I've still been trying to figure out the opportunities in transit. So we know you talked about some things at the Gwinnett Place Mall, but as it pertains to small business, micro businesses, what kind of opportunities do you see available for them as a part of that new development? I know it's going to take some time to build out, but what do you see as opportunities for small business, micro businesses, as you build that out?
Right. So first, before I get into that, you hit on something good that I want to mention. Is you said it's going to take some time to build out a transit plan. One of the complaints we heard from the last referendum was it takes too long to come to fruition. I think it was 15 or 20 years before you can expect to see a heavy rail service from Doraville to Jimmy Carter, less than 2 miles, I think 1.5 miles. And the beautiful thing about this plan is majority of it will be up and running in 6 to 8 years. Within 10 years, majority of the plan will be complete. So I just want to mention that to let people know we heard that concern. This plan is more tangible time-wise. Now, as for the opportunities available for small businesses, look, this is a $17 billion plan, right? And as I said before, it's an expansion of the Gwinnett County Department of Transportation. So that means we're going to need additional staff, which are those opportunities to hire people, whether it's simply driving a bus, or making sure the buses get to where they need to logistically. There's going to be job opportunities across the board, right? Second, we're going to need additional buses. We're going to need more fleet, bus fleet yards, where the buses go and park. So imagine all the goods and services that you will need to operate a transit service. Well, that's only going to grow tenfold, literally tenfold. And I think there's an opportunity for employees, potential future employees, but for small businesses that get on that vendor list with the county to get a piece of that work. Because like I told you the other day, the transit plan is as much as a jobs plan as it is a transit plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to bring, again, $17 billion to the state of Georgia, specifically to Gwinnett County, Georgia. So let's have these conversations now to educate our.
Oh, I think he's frozen. His screen is frozen. It's been freezing, so I
Talking.
guess
Go
okay,
for it.
your screen froze for a second. How would you what would you suggest people start to do right now? I know let's back up for a second. When is the plan scheduled to kick off? When is the breaking ground and all that good stuff?
So we're a ways from that. So what we did, we as a board, we voted to send the plan to the Atlanta Regional Commission, and they're going to review it to make sure it's sound plan, it's fiscally constrained, etc. That should take 60 days. The Board of Commissioners, I think we're going to have to approve an agenda item. No, we already did that. So we sent it off to them. Once it comes back from them, at some point next year, the Board of Commissioners would need to schedule a referendum. Again, we're going to need a referendum to tax ourselves for a duration of 30 years so we can secure that funding locally. And that will qualify us for that federal funding. So given the timeline of probably an April or March board vote, you're probably looking at another referendum in November of 2024, which I think is a good thing because something this important needs to be on a ballot where you'll have increase or the max turnout. Because as many Gwinnettians as possible need to weigh in on this important matter. So then once thankfully cross our fingers, knock on wood, whatever you believe in, once this passes in November, then it's incumbent on our transit division, which is kind of small at this time, but a good group of folks, to do what they need to prepare to grow the local DOT to provide these services. And I also say this too, there may be an opportunity for vendors or companies to consult or contract out some of these services. You see, once you have the money coming in and you put a deadline to get these services up and running, that may be an opportunity for a vendor to say, hey, we can provide you, instead of hiring bus drivers, we can contract bus drivers. We can contract you these services or goods.
Mm.
So, with that said, if you look at the plan, the start date to get some of these routes up and running are just a couple years after the initial vote. So I think 26, 28, you'll start to see some of these routes on the road. So again, like I said before, within the first 6 years of its passage, I think, was it 70 or 80% of the plan will be up and running. Within 10 years, majority of the plan will be up and running.
You know, when we left the meeting last time, there were some women who were very interested in having fleet yards. What would that actually look like? What would that process look like to have a fleet yard? Because they were kind of excited about that when you said that. And what would the process look like to have a fleet yard outside of being a vendor with the county? What would that process look like?
I'm not entirely
And I have a
sure
follow-up question.
of the question. I do know what I said the other day was, if we grow the fleet of buses, we're going to have a bigger fleet yard. And one of the things county staff is doing right now is looking for sites that would make, be a good candidate to grow a fleet yard. Because again, if you expand the bus services like we're talking about doing, you're just going to need more real estate to park the trucks and then work on the buses and everything.
Okay, thank you.
You
Quick
had a follow-up?
question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I may have missed this, so I do apologize if I'm asking a question that's already been answered. So what I'm hearing you say is that there's a lot of opportunities because of all the great things that is in store for this transportation, what's going on the Gwinnett Place Mall for, small businesses, or like Audrey like to say, your micro businesses. So what I don't know about, and again, correct me if this is already out there, because we know that this is going to be something that's going to take some time. Is there any proactive plans to kind of have a meet and greet or a Q&A for these businesses to get them ready to
Right.
be able to bid on said contracts? I think a lot of times, and Audrey and I have been in meetings before where we discussed this, that we feel like there are a lot of small businesses that want to be in position to be able to be a part of these companies, because it could definitely be a game changer for the success of their companies, but they just don't know how to go about being prepared and ready. And that is whether, financially, whether it's equipment, whether just their infrastructure. And I think especially now we are in a position to where, like you said yourself, we're looking at about a couple of years. This is a great time to get with businesses who are looking to do something like this, to say, hey, we're going to be looking for companies that have these things already in place and established to be a contender, as opposed to them shooting in the dark thinking that they're ready and they're not, or and they don't know that they're not ready, and then their business fails because they cannot handle the influx of business, or they are not ready, not because they cannot be ready, but they don't know what you just don't know what you don't know. So that's
Exactly.
kind of what my question is.
That's a great question. And I'll talk about two things that we're doing now, or we're starting the process on now, that I believe will tee small women, minority owned firms up for success with Gwinnett County long term. So, first off, I definitely want to acknowledge what Chantel and that group is doing in economic development. We actually host workshops where we actually promote, or we encourage businesses to get on the vendors list, and we actually walk them through the process. So we'll actually have a presentation, staff will be present, and we say, hey, if you're interested in doing business with Gwinnett County, Georgia, here's the process, here's how to do it. Second, and most importantly, one of the things we talked about the last time we met was we've actually started the process on the disparity study, or we started the process to select a firm to conduct the disparity study. In fact, I think earlier this week at our Tuesday board meeting, Nicole, she announced it in our opening comments to the meeting, saying, hey, we're officially starting this process. If you're a firm and you have experience doing this, you need to be prepared to submit. Now, that's important for small business owners because of this. It's our goal to put in place a vendor participation ordinance as a result of that study, where we will set aspirations or goals to diversify the pool of people who are rewarded contracts to do work with the county through bid and procurement. So what I mean by this, it'd be similar to what Mayor Maynard Jackson did with the city of Atlanta, or what you see at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, where they look at a history of discrimination, if it's taken place, and they see, well, were there any barriers in place that prevented these protected classes from having equal opportunity of getting work? If that's the case, then let's work to address it. And that vendor participation ordinance will read, whereas these protected classes have had barriers into entry to get county work, we will set these goals where, I'm just going to make some numbers up, 30% will be women, 30% will be, veterans, 10% disabled, etc. Again, don't get focused on the numbers, focus more on, the goal and intent of this ordinance. Now, that disparity study should take anywhere from 18 to 20 months to conduct. But once complete and the board acts on it, right, comes with an ordinance, that's going to knock down those barriers. That's going to create opportunities for small business owners in Gwinnett that were not there prior. So, what can we do now to make sure those business owners are aware? First off, we're letting people know now that we've begun the process, and we need to make sure those business owners attend those events so they know how to properly submit to get on that vendors list and to go after contracts or work that they think is best suited, and make sure they can meet those requirements, right? There may be requirements for bonding or insurance for certain projects or different construction jobs, and we need to make sure they're aware of that. But then once that vendor participation ordinance is in place, and those barriers are knocked down and we're setting aspirational goals, by that point, we've teed small businesses up for success. Again, to have an opportunity to get work that historically they may or may not have. And I will say this before I close the loop on this. The Fulton County Commission, under the leadership of John Eves, did a disparity study. And what they found was it wasn't as bad as what they thought it was. They said, oh, wow, we actually do a good job of promoting women and diversifying our vendor pool. And the beautiful thing about a disparity study is it's an objective critique or look at your organization and your operations. So that's why I welcome it, right? Because if we want to be the preferred employer, if we want to say we're committed to diversity and equity and everything that we do in this organization, we need to be prepared to do that deep dive and take a look at ourselves and our organization to make sure we're actually who we say we are, who we want to be. And if we are, great. But if we find that there's barriers or there's things we can do to improve the organization to create that fair playing field, then we need to find those problems and address them. Because, words are so much, but I find with small business owners, they want to see action, right? They want to see follow-up.
Absolutely. I got a quick question for you though, because this just came to mind. So when the small business grant was announced, everybody was happy. They was excited. Oh my God, it's going to be some money here for me.
Yeah.
And then what happened was they started to run into barriers about, how the criteria that had to be met before they could even, qualify for the small business grant. So one of the things I heard people say something like, if I don't have employees and I don't actually pay myself a check, I don't qualify. So do you know anything about that you can speak to?
Not in detail, to be honest with you. I do know we have the grant program up and running. We started this summer. It can repay up to minimum of $3 up to $15,000 if a small business can show that they experience hardship or a loss as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm not aware off the top of my head of all the requirements. I do believe there had to be a certain amount of employees employed, had to be within the business and the county within a certain duration of time. Again, I can't, and forgive me, I can't remember all the requirements of the program, but if you want, you can always shoot me an email at kirkland.carden@gwinnettcounty.com. and I'll be happy to get my staff with you or anybody else who wants to know those requirements. But the opportunity is there. Again, folks may or may not qualify for the program, but anything that can help. Especially if you're a small business owner operating on a small profit margin, $15,000 is not a de minimis amount of money.
Yeah.
So I definitely say if it applies to you, look it up, submit an application, and hopefully you'll be rewarded some money.
All right. So I've asked a lot of questions. Is there anything you want to share about moving forward? I know it's campaign season, so I want to give you the opportunity to talk about it because I didn't. But what are some of the things you are proud about that you have accomplished while you've been in office, and what are some of the things that you plan to continue to do or to do that have not been done if you are reelected?
Okay. Well, first off, I think everything's better in threes. So I think the three things that I've done that I'm proud of would be first month in office, we removed that Confederate monument in downtown Lawrenceville. People who have followed me know that, I campaigned on doing that. And I'm happy to say we did that February of 2021, just in time for Black History Month. Second, something I'm very proud of was, as I mentioned before, providing our employees with paid parental leave. I'm a new dad. To the right of me, we got the playground set. I got trucks here. That this is, something that was important to me because through my employer, because I have a job outside of this, I was offered paid parental leave. And this all came about because I talked to one of my friends with the county and I found out that they didn't have it. And her husband were actually planning on dipping into their savings so they can take time off work to be with their child. So as a new dad, someone whose family is important to me. I come from a big family. Having the opportunity to do that and set that example for other local governments was something I'm just extremely proud of. And the third and final thing, again, is something I campaigned on, was the purchase of Gwinnett Place Mall. I think March of 2021, we bought the mall for $26 million. And, that was important because as a 19-year resident of Gwinnett, I've seen that part of the county deteriorate. But I've seen other parts of the county get the investment it got where that area still remained to be clean, vibrant, and sustainable. And that Gwinnett Place area is the economic engine of our county. I mean, per capita, we get more sales tax dollars from that part of town than any other part in Gwinnett County, Georgia.
Wow.
So, yeah. I think, don't quote me on it. Well, I'm not going to give a number because I know that number is old, but literally billions of dollars a year is contributed to the local economy of Georgia, not just Gwinnett County, from that area.
Wow.
So imagine what would happen, how much more money we would receive if instead of a dead mall with a parking lot around it, you had mixed use, office space, green space, retail, apartments in that area, similar to the Battery or Avalon. The money you would get back would be tenfold. So that 26 million, you would see that back like nothing in perpetuity. So I know that process has just started, but again, I'm biased, but I think this Board of Commissioners has done more for that area in 3 years than our predecessors have in 10. And I'm proud of the work we have done.
Yeah.
So if I'm reelected, because I want to make sure I plug this, the top three things I'm going to focus on are public safety, making sure people feel safe and welcome in our neighborhoods. Transportation, we want to make sure we get this transit plan up and running and making sure we have infrastructure in place for not just current Gwinnett, but future Gwinnett. And then housing affordability. These homes that are selling for right now, nothing is selling under 200,000. And the median
There's something for 200,000?
No, I'm saying there's nothing.
No.
I can actually
Nothing.
say it. Data shows over the last 12 months, no home sold for under $200,000.
Oh.
But the median income in Gwinnett is around 78, 79,000. So that means on paper, the residents of Gwinnett County cannot afford to live in Gwinnett County.
So how do you fix that? Because real estate is not owned by the county; it's owned by private investors and private firms, right? So how do you fix that? Do you tell them, listen, you got to create affordable houses, or you can't build here? How's that fixed? Because I think about downtown Lawrenceville. I live in Lawrenceville. And I remember in 2019 when they were building all of the new South Lawn down there, the houses were 250, 280 maybe. Soon as the pandemic hit, they went up to 400,000 and they have not come down. So how do you regulate that when a builder comes and they want to build here and they, I want to charge 600. I seen a house, I want to say on the other side of GJAC, I think $600,000 or seven. I was like, what in the hazy? Like, why? So how do you regulate that? How do you make the builder say, you know what, we're going to build affordable?
So two things. I think number one, you have to offer the private sector developers some kind of monetary incentive to want to create a set aside of affordable units or housing. Because you hit on it, if the free market's left to do as it pleases, it's going to charge as much money as it possibly can for anything. And history has shown someone will pay for it, right? So one of the things we've done as commissioners is we've put in some new programs that will offset the cost of development to try to get some affordable units. So recently we announced $18.4 million, most of it in federal assistance we got during the pandemic, but $18.4 million that developers and nonprofits can apply for that will be used to offset the cost of development. In return, we get some affordable housing units, right? So we're saying, hey, look, we'll give you some money to help with your acquisition, rehab, etc. But in return, we need some affordable units for a long duration of time. One thing too, I want to mention, we're actually doing a rewrite of our economic development ordinance, which hasn't been rewritten or addressed in years. Historically, it was focused on bringing major employers like Amazon and, those big box warehouse folks to the county, but there was never a focus put on the workforce, right? It was always figured, it was always the mindset of, well, we'll bring the jobs here and the workers, they'll figure that out. Well, clearly that's not working in modern day Gwinnett County, Georgia. So we're actually working with a good group of consultants to try to see what incentives we can provide, such as tax abatements, etc., to try to encourage that workforce housing. But then lastly, look, I want to be crystal clear with people. And this is why I'm one of the more pro-development commissioners on the board, is we got to get some more homes of different types on the market, right? Because this is all about supply and demand. If the supply is limited and there's great demand, somebody will pay a lot of money to get into a home. So we're going to need to come with some more homes of all different types: townhomes, duplexes, quadplexes, apartments, all the above. So I think we're on track to add another 500,000 people in the next 20 years. So if we want to make sure this housing affordability problem doesn't get away from us, we're going to need to make sure we create housing, not just for today, but for the future. So I think with a combination of incentives and new supply, we should get our housing affordability problem under control.
We have an aging population. I'm sorry, Letitia. We have an aging population, and I know a lot of them do not like stairs, right? And they don't like stairs. And so what we see being built is two-story buildings. I'm used to that. I'm from Jersey, right? So I'm used to two-story buildings. But here in Georgia, I was kind of, I guess, to take advantage of the space you build up. But what about the seniors and the aging population that don't want stairs? Is that particular group being focused on at all?
Historically, no, but with this group, yes. So what you're saying is the homes that are more age friendly, where you can age in place, those usually have the master on the main, right? Where your master bedroom is on the same floor as your front door and it's set up like that. We need to make sure that we have future housing, that we encourage new development that's friendly for our seniors too, because I know when we talk about Gwinnett, we talk a lot about its young, diverse population, but over the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to see an increase in our seniors. People are living longer, and people are moving to the South because of our good weather, the climate, etc. So we have to make sure we have housing in place for our seniors, but also some senior housing or assisted living for them as well, for those who can afford it. So I think, was it day before yesterday, I went out to a ribbon cutting off Old Peachtree, corner Satellite, and we celebrated the opening of some senior housing in that area, or assisted living. So that's going to be the kind of development we're going to need to promote going forward to accommodate that fast-growing population. And real quick, can I say a funny story? I was talking to my mom last night. I had a fundraiser for my reelection, and she was talking about, what are we doing as a county to make sure we're making space for the young people and the students and the people in school. I was like, Mom, you do know, based off the population growth and the demographics, there's going to be more people your age coming to the county than prior. So we got to make sure, we have a place for the seniors.
Yeah.
People older than me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hate to be the one to keep bringing it back to the numbers and the finance part of it, but that's just who I am. So I hear you, talking about bringing in different type of homes and the affordable housing, which in my mind, I'm terming that in houses that people can afford, and I'm doing quotation to get in. One of the things, and I saw this on Facebook as well, where a young lady posted dealing with interest rates. And she was like, make it make sense. People are okay paying, 20 something percent interest on, their credit card. They're okay paying, 14% on a car loan. They don't want to pay 7%, on buying a house. And I was like, yeah, but it's not that cut and dry, because you're paying 7% on a $350,000, $400,000 home that's not even worth $350,000 or $400,000. So my question is, when we're talking about, all these incentives for the builders to be able to do these things, how do consumers be able to understand the financing piece of it to put themselves in position to be able to afford what is considered affordable that may not be considered affordable to them? Because I think, to me, that's a breakdown. When we first bought our house over 20 years ago, our interest rate was 7.5%. So 7% to me is not unheard of, but it's unheard of when you look at it from when we bought it 20 years ago. The house was half of what it is now. So those numbers are relative. The second piece to that is, let's understand, not too long ago, people were getting houses with 2% interest, 3% interest, 1% interest, that now you're telling them to go back and be okay with 7%. But why? I was liking it 3%. And you now want me to forget that I was able to get 3% and be okay with 7%. So how do we actually have that conversation so people can understand that still buying a house is still a good investment, even at the 7% interest, and it can still be affordable, that you can maintain a living? How do we have that conversation?
Well, I'll say this. I'll try to say it the best I can, though I'm not a real estate agent, and I don't want to force anything on anybody. But I still feel, at the end of the day, buying a single family home, having that asset in your portfolio, is one of the best things you can do to create wealth for yourself and your family, and make sure you have an asset to pass on to your descendants down the road. Now, with that said, in this country, for about 15 years, the Fed and federal government, which is above my, wheelhouse, left interest rates dirt low for 15 years. And what you're seeing now is the private sector, especially on the development side, a period of transition, right? When they did their underwriting to make a multifamily apartment community or a single family subdivision, their models were low for 15 years. And now, just like that, due to things outside of my control, they're having to do the same thing, but at different levels, right? It's more expensive to pull money. And, this is a time of transition that we're seeing. And though a lot of these factors are outside of my control as a commissioner, like I do not control national interest rates. What I can do is this. What we can provide is monetary incentives for developers to bring down the cost of development with the hope of getting something that is attainable, right? Because as I said before, $500,000, if you make less than $80,000 a year, is not obtainable, right? That's literally that's out of your reach, right? If you're paying that, you're going to feel some financial hardship. So my goal with the programs, like I said before, the 18.4 million, is to incentivize that affordable housing development. Also, too, Tuesday of this week, the Board of Commissioners approved our first revamp of the Unified Development Ordinance since 2014. And in that, we're providing developers the opportunity to create smaller homes, cottage court. They're still single family homes, but they're just going to be on smaller lots of land, and they'll still be 2 stories. To me, that's the market rate solution to some of this affordable housing. Is that, look, if it's going to cost you X amount of square feet to buy a home, not everybody's going to afford the 2,600 square foot home or the 3,000 square foot home. So let's see if we can develop 1,200, 1,100 square feet homes that are just as nice, right? We're still keeping the same design standards, but we're saying, hey, if this is cost of square footage of home, let's see if we can make a nice quality home smaller and then make that attainable for people. Cottage court, I know a lot of people call that. They're not tiny homes, right? But it's a market rate solution to try to address some of the housing affordability problems. And then hopefully, I'm 35, but I'm hoping that once we get past this period, because I want to live for some time, but once we get past this period of steep interest rates and the Fed ends their crusade and slow down the economy, these things are in cycles. So this is a rough cycle, but it's my hope once we get past it, the people in Gwinnett County will be in a better place to afford a home.
Let me ask you this. When I lived in Jersey, I had a client. She had a nonprofit organization, and what her nonprofit did was she did workshops. She did what was called a Super Saturday once a month, where she got together. She brought in like title companies. She brought in real estate agents. She brought in mortgage brokers. She brought everybody to the table that would be a part of a house buying process. And this one Saturday out of the month, they would come in, they would explain what they did. So it might have been a plumber, an electrician. They all came on that one Saturday. But for that, she was able to get a community block grant to put that program out, right? It was free to the public, and it was for first-time home buyers. And when they went through that program and they went through the credit counseling, which I think the credit counseling may have been 6 weeks after their Super Saturday, that person was able to get a $15,000 not stipend, but some kind of like a
down payment assistance.
Like a down payment assistance, $15,000.
Right.
Do we have community block grants that would allow us to do things like that to ease the home buying process and to help the person with the down payment and the credit counseling and all those things?
We actually do, and I'm glad you brought that up. So we have a down payment assistance program. Now, a lot of that is ran through the state. Mm-hmm. But correct me if I'm wrong, again, I want y'all to email me on this because I can't recall the information off the top of my head. I believe there are local community block grants that help with down payment assistance. I think the number is 7,500. Mm-hmm. But again, email me. The gentleman that runs it, his name is Matt Elder with the county. And we actually have events. We do it once a year, but we probably could do it more. We did an event this summer where we had a number of people from different organizations, even some of the different housing authorities, and they were promoting all the things that you talked about to help people get into homes. And we actually had some of the properties, that have affordable housing in Gwinnett promoting their properties, promoting that wait list that people can get on. So, and here's the crazy thing about it. I think it started at 9 o'clock. Um, there was already a line an hour before the event.
Mhm.
So that lets you know the need is great.
It is great.
That, yeah. So I think there's probably a need or a built up demand to have those events more often.
Hmm.
But I think if you go on our website or our social media page, you'll see all the information from that event. I actually did an interview with our communications department that night or that morning. Um, but yeah, that's one of my takeaways is that if people are piling up at 8 o'clock in the morning for a 9 o'clock event for housing, then I think we probably need to do it more than once a year. But
I
once
had
we do it, I'll be sure to promote it and get it to you next time so you can help get it out.
Yes, please do. I had a client last year. She had an employee, and her employee lived in Decatur, and she had a problem because she didn't drive, so there was no transportation, and she couldn't afford to live in Gwinnett County. So she pretty much almost had to quit the job. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I want to jump back to business. We got about 5 minutes, but I want to jump back to business real quick.
All right.
Um, One of the things that I know that a lot of our business owners, especially micro businesses, struggle with is getting exposure for what they do. I had a meeting with another commissioner in another county, and one of the things he said that he did was make sure that he's put his businesses in his area on spotlight. He put them in the newsletter, he put them on the website, he put them on the social media page. We don't see a lot of that here. Is there a
Yeah.
reason for that?
I'm gonna be honest with you. It's just something that I've thought about doing. I know other commissioners have done that in the past, but one thing at least what I've done, right? I don't necessarily have a business spotlight, but what we do is we'll commissioners will pick their favorite restaurants, and then what we'll do is we'll have communications come through, and we'll do like an interview with the business owner. We'll try some food, and we'll put it on Gwinnett TV. That's probably the closest thing that I've done to promote a small business one on one. But with that said, that's not something I wouldn't be opposed to doing. Maybe put something in the newsletter once a month saying, hey, put a spotlight on this small business and what they're doing.
I,
Yeah, I'll be open to it.
I think that's helpful. I remember when Oz Nesbitt was running for office over in Rockdale, he created a whole show, and I
Oh, wow.
followed him, and I felt like he did that for the purpose of connecting with the community, like really connect, because he wasn't asking for anything. He was spotlighting everybody, and he won the
Hmm.
election. So I think he's CEO of Rockdale, and I was
Yeah.
watching him, and I was like, that's amazing. I'm media all day long, so when I saw him do that, I thought that was pretty smart. Like because I think I went to about 5 of the events where he just showed up with the camera crew, and they did the whole thing, but he won that election, and I felt
Yeah.
like that was a big part of him winning that election. So for me, any way you can help the community, because I know you guys are super busy, right? Especially
Hmm.
when we have a population of 1 million people and it's still growing. But whenever you can help shine a spotlight on a small business, or help us get the word out, or help us find out what's happening, because a lot of times we don't know what's happening. And I think I shared the story. I was in a meeting last year, and people, I was in a bunch of them, but I kept hearing we don't know how to get the communications out. And I think the last person to say it was Mark Farmer from the Economic Development. And I'm sitting there going, why do they keep saying that? And so I came up with an idea, that I actually got a investor to invest in, did it, and then it just kind of flopped. But I think that's another thing too, being able to support, even when we have solutions, just support. Like, we're small businesses, we're trying to continue to be a part of the economy, and the internet make Gwinnett run, but we need support. And I know a lot of times, it's like, well, it's your business, you should be doing these things, and we are, like, we are grinding all the time. Like, I'm grinding. My husband woke up to go to work at 4 o'clock. I was still awake this morning. He goes, did you go to sleep? I was like, I did not. I was
Hmm.
wide awake. He's like, oh my God. So we need that support. And it's not that we're like looking out for a handout. We're just looking for support. That's all.
I hear you.
That's all. So any closing remarks, any closing questions? Because we are right at the close of the show.
Well, I'll definitely say this shameless plug. Please visit my website, Kirkland4Gwinnett.com. That's the number for Gwinnett. If you want to reach out or learn more about the re-election campaign. If you have county-related issues, you can always email me at kirkland.carden@gwinnettcounty.com. I'll be happy to get my staff on any issues, help share any information. And then lastly, look, one thing I pride myself on is constituent service, right? So there's no issue too big or too small where you can't approach me. If it's something the purview of county government, don't hesitate to reach out. But I do want to thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to speak with your members this morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to attend your event. I think it was yesterday over in Peachtree Corners.
Day before.
It was a great opportunity. Yeah, day before. Days just run together for me. I'm sorry. It's the 2-year-old. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with your members. And I'm looking forward to working with y'all in the future as we have more of these programs and opportunities open up. Definitely want to work with y'all to make sure we promote it.
Thank you for keeping your word, and I appreciate that more than you know.
Thanks, y'all.
Letitia, thank you for joining us again this morning. Listen, this is the Friday Morning Mingle. We do it every Friday morning at 10 a.m., sometimes 10:30, depending on where we are in the world, but most of the time at 10 a.m. Commissioner, thank you so much for your time. Letitia, thank you so much for your time. Listen, everybody, we'll be back next Friday with another episode of the Friday Morning Mingle, so be sure to subscribe to the show. Facebook, LinkedIn, Amazon, Twitter, we're everywhere. Alexa, everywhere. We're everywhere. So subscribe to the show. You won't miss an episode if you subscribe. Thank you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend and it's a beautiful day. I'm looking at that background. I'm going outside now and do my little meditation for the moment. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Until next time, make it a great day. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Take care, y'all.
Thank you for tuning in to the Friday Morning Mingle. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite streaming platform. If you would like to join a community of women who mean business, we invite you to become a member of the Gwinnett Women's Chamber of Commerce by going to www.gwinnettwomenschamber.com, or to become a member of the Thrive Tribe, go to www.thrivetribe.biz. Tune in next week for another great episode of the Friday Morning Mingle at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.